A famous explorer once said that the extraordinary is in what we do.
Christ almighty. But oh.
You've got great instincts, girl.
With Shadow of the Tomb Raider releasing in a few days, I thought this was a good time to talk about a franchise that I've been a fan of for quite some time now. You know, whenever I play games that have any sort of historical inspiration, I'm always that guy that ends up on Wikipedia trying to figure out if Francis Drake was actually part of the Queen's Secret Service, or if the city of Kitesh was actually a real place, and more often than not, these things actually check out with real life history. With that said, this is an attempt to bring that research, that I end up doing for myself anyway, into video, mixing it up with a bite-sized walkthrough of the game, I guess.
Yeah, I was afraid you were going to say that.
So, without further ado, let's talk about Tomb Raider. No, not that one. The 2013 reboot by Crystal Dynamics. It has an interesting choice of titles, seen as though there's a noticeable lack of set tombs to raid, and those that do exist end up being completely optional. We play as a younger, inexperienced Lara Croft that, together with the crew of the Endurance, named after the ship that got stuck and sunk beneath the Antarctic ice, oh boy, pursue Lara's research on the Kingdom of Yamatai. This was actually a real place, and it just so happens to be one of the most debated topics among experts of Japanese history. Everyone can kind of agree that the kingdom existed between the 1st and 3rd centuries of the Common Era, but when you talk about where it was located, that's where the confusion starts. Yamatai records come from two different sources, the Chinese texts, known as the Book of Wei, and the Japanese texts. The two main theories for the location of this kingdom are either in northern Kyushu or at the Yamato province in the Kinki region of central Honshu. The controversy comes from an account of the path from Korea to Yamatai that's present in the Book of Wei. Essentially, those that support the Kyushu theory doubt the description of the distance, while those that believe in the Kinki theory doubt the direction. The developers decided to avoid this debate altogether, and by using the coordinates displayed in the map, we can see that they depict Yamatai as an island in the northern tip of the Dragon's Triangle, which is pretty much a less popular cousin of the Bermuda Triangle. With this many premonitions, it doesn't really come as a surprise that the Endurance is caught on a massive storm and ends up shipwrecking on Yamatai, with the crew forced to survive everything that the island and its crazy cult-following inhabitants, known as the Solari, throw at them. Lara gets captured less than 30 seconds of stepping on the island because plot reasons, and after having possibly the worst morning ever, sets out to find the rest of the crew. She eventually reunites with Sam, her best friend from college, and meets for the first time an older survivor of the island, a man named Matthias. This guy is remarkably interested in the story of Queen Himiko, who is supposedly an ancestor of Sam. In reality, Himiko is known as the Great Queen of Yamatai. Not only was she the monarch that ruled the kingdom for longest, it was also under her rule that said kingdom was most powerful and prosperous. Her name roughly translates to Sun Queen, an indication of her power not only as a ruler but also as a shaman, since she was known to dwell in the realm of the spirits. Back to the story, Sam gets unsurprisingly kidnapped by Matthias and Lara is forced to continue the search. After an encounter with a bear trap and a wolf pack, the rest of the crew arrives and decide to split up to look for Sam. So, we're stuck with good old Dr. Whitman, renowned archaeologist and absolute prick. He doesn't stay for long as he decides to follow the crazy Solari because they are an anthropological marvel, while Lara, the sensible one, decides to resist. What follows is a very brutal and emotional first kill. Kick his ass, Lara! Kick his ass! Come on! Shoot him! Come on! There you go. Ugh. Ugh. That's intense. It's technically not the first kill, but nah, we'll let that slide. Still, I feel like she might have gone over it a little bit too quick. Oh, you fucked up now. Okay, maybe not because the game froze. Come on!
Should be some good stuff then.
I had to kill some of them. I had no choice.
That can't have been easy.
It looked pretty easy.
It's scary just how easy it was.
Anyway, we eventually find Roth, who is sort of the mentor to Lara, and she proceeds to save the man's life. I mean, isn't she an archaeologist? Because apparently she would do just fine as a field doctor.
Where does a young lady like you learn to do a thing like that?
Late shift at the 9 Bells. Wolf's got nothing on a broken bottle.
I guess that's the reason. Lara points out a radio tower on the top of the mountain that can be used to call for help, and off we go. She manages to do that, and honestly, I have no idea how she didn't just freeze to death halfway up. I mean, haven't you heard about hypothermia? Because apparently it doesn't exist in this universe, but what do I know? Point is, an aircraft comes by and gets immediately shot down by a lightning bolt, apparently caused by Himiko, who tried to say something. What? Someone in the audio department must have messed something up, because if I had the subtitles turned off, I couldn't even tell that she was speaking. I mean, I wouldn't really understand what she was saying anyway, since, you know.
I don't speak Japanese.
But, you know what I mean. Trying to save the surviving pilots, or the surviving pilot, we stumble upon an old monastery in a chasm and are immediately captured. Again, but this time by some even weirder dudes. The Solari know them as Oni, which in real life are supernatural ogres from Japanese folklore that are typically depicted with one or more horns growing out of their very angry head. In-game, these are members of the Storm Guard, a sort of personal samurai army of the Queen. Conveniently left alive in a room of dead bodies, Lara escapes, unless you decide to turn back around. And of course, destroys an ancient monastery on the way, Tomb Raider style. Outside, we're contacted by Sam, who says that she's being held captive in some sort of fortress. Oh, and the rest of her friends are there as well, I guess. So, we head on down the mountain. Tomb Raider style, and arrive at the shantytown, the Solari HQ. On the way to the palace, we find Grim, the Helmsmaster, who's had a remarkable 90-second appearance in 2 cutscenes throughout the game. And after going on a really big detour to get to him, he ends up sacrificing himself so that Lara can continue on.
So I give her a old Glasgow kiss, you know.
In the meantime, Roth has found himself a sniper rifle and bunkered down on an incredibly convenient sniper's nest, providing support while we attempt to cross the bridge that leads to the fortress. If anything, this section just serves to show how amazingly lucky Lara is, at least when the game works. Oh boy. Well. What? I mean, this is just a bit ridiculous. Well. Whoa. God, you're lucky. Because of all the ruckus, we have to essentially enter the stronghold through the basement, traveling under the fortress in the vast complex of geothermal caves. Fortunately, Lara manages to find Sam almost immediately, but fails to save her just as quick. So, Lara is forced to watch her best friend burn at the stake, until she's saved by an unnatural gust of wind. Huh, I guess miracles do happen. Now we enter the part of the game where I'm pretty sure the developers decided they were making a horror game just because. I mean, these caves have it all. Blood rivers, human bones everywhere, creepy ambience, and of course, the amazing company of these weird ghoul-like mutated humans. Well, Lara finds her friends, rescues them, and of course, blows up the entire complex of caves. You know, Tomb Raider style. So she enters the fortress, rescues Sam, gets immediately separated from her, and escapes with Roth on a helicopter that answered the first SOS, in true Modern Warfare style. The chopper obviously goes down, and in the aftermath of the crash, Roth sacrifices himself so that Lara can carry on. I feel like I've said this before. Huh. Well, after the Warriors send-off, the group decides to head to the coastline where Reyes thinks she can fix an old PT boat, which were small boats used by the US Navy during World War II, and use it to get off the island. Meanwhile, Lara knows that they have to stop whatever is causing the storms before escaping, so she plans on using the boat to go inland to the monastery, the place she thinks is the solution to their problem. So we head over to the beach, a wonderful place full of tetanus-infested structures and wrecked ships, some of them from the World War II era, as well as Portuguese galleons.
Looks to be early 18th century.
Oh, right. Well, back in the 1500s, Portugal actually had one of the biggest and most powerful empires in the world, which included a couple of colonies in the East Indies. As such, records of trading between Portugal and Japan exist well into the 1800s and included everything from weapons to slaves. So it's not a far-fetched idea to have this galleon here, since the island is relatively close to Japan. Anyway, when we get to the wreck of the Endurance, which is apparently being salvaged for parts by the Solari, we find Alex, who went to search for some tools to fix the boat. Of course, the guy got stuck, and after a real blue balls moment between the two, he sacrifices himself, giving Lara the tools and ensuring she can carry on.
Alex!
Again, I'm pretty sure I've seen this before. Why can't I put my finger on it? Deliver the tools to Reyes, say hello to the selfish prick, and onwards to the research base we go, hoping to finally get some answers. Reading the reports from the researchers, we figure out that they were at the island in hopes of finding a way to harness the power of the storms, so that they can, win the war. This plays around with the myth that during the Second World War, the Axis forces, and in particular the Nazis, were in search of ancient mythological artifacts, in hopes of acquiring their powers to get an advantage over the Allies. Going deeper into the base, Lara eventually finds the tomb of the Stormguard commander. Now this is where we can finally piece everything together, in its majority anyway.
Alright, this is it.
Across the island, there are several documents that you can collect. There are pages of the diary of Hoshi, one of Himiko's sun priestesses. This girl is special, since she's being treated by the queen better than if she was her daughter.
As if she's looking at her own reflection.
Well, she meant that quite literally, since the big reveal is that Himiko attempted to reach immortality by transferring her own soul from one body of one very lucky sun priestess to the next.
All these queens, they're all... you, Himiko.
Apparently she did manage to do that, kind of, since Hoshi lived during the Kamakura period, between 1185 and 1333 of the Common Era, which is an obvious extension of the time Yamatai was actually around, which means that Himiko managed to live for about 10 centuries. The game never cares to explain how that actually happens, which, I think it's the logical question to ask when you make a revelation like that.
Don't start that bullshit again, Lara.
To figure that one out, we need to read some comics. Yup, Crystal Dynamics collaborated with Dark Horse Comics to bring us some stories that depict the events that happen in between the games. One of the particular story arcs is all about Himiko, and in it, it's actually explained that the whole process happened due to an artifact called the Way Mirror, and it kind of explains how that mirror actually works. I mean, it's not much, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Anyways, after the priestess figured out what was going to happen, getting sacrificed on some weird immortality ritual, she decided to put an end to it herself, and so she stole the knife of the commander, bringing it with her into the ritual ceremony, and stabbed herself during the transfer process, which I guess corrupted something and so trapped Himiko in her own decaying body. But she's still as beautiful, oh my god. I mean, for a body that is almost a millennia old, it's not that bad, I think. The commander watched the whole thing, and because he couldn't stop the girl and save his queen, he decided to commit seppuku, which was a ritual suicide performed mostly by samurai to preserve their honor. In this case, because he brought shame to himself by failing his duties as Himiko's protector. This whole thing granted Himiko omnipresence on the island, somehow, as well as a bigger control over the storms of the region. Yes, bigger, because apparently she already had some sort of control, as you can sort of piece together if you read the rest of the ancient scrolls, which again, they do an amazing job at not explaining how the hell that happened. Back at the beach, we learn that Whitman is an asshole, big surprise, and that he helped Matthias recapture Sam and take her to the Chasm Monastery. So, with no other option, the boat is taken inland up the river. Before we enter the monastery, we get to see one of the most satisfying deaths in the entire game.
What is it, Japanese? You're Joe!
Prick. Inside, we fight what is a quite considerable amount of Stormguard samurais. By the way, it's never really explained how these guys are, you know, still kicking after all these years. I mean, Himiko, for as ridiculous as it is, still has some sort of explanation. These guys are just kind of here, and that's it. Surely they didn't use the mirror on all of these guys, so what is it? A summon by Himiko? The final note of the commander kind of implies that they are cursed, but honestly that's a pretty weak reason. If that's the case, at least we are finally offering them sweet release. So, after defeating single-handedly the Queen's entire army, Lara prepares to fight the Big Oni and... oh, no. There he goes. Great. We eventually reach the final location of the game, the ziggurat. These pyramid structures are mostly known from Mesoamerican civilizations, such as the Maya or the Aztec, and were built as places of ritual. So, all that's left is the epic conclusion, which I'm going to summarize because it doesn't really have any historical reference other than what we already talked about. So, climb ziggurat, fight Solari, avoid getting blown away, fight the big dude, for real this time, kill the big dude, confront Matthias, kill Matthias, stop the ritual, save Sam, go back home on a ship, become the Tomb Raider, the end. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching and sticking till the end. I really appreciate it. This is something new to me, you know, scripted video and such, for the most part anyway. So any feedback that you can leave in the comment section below is greatly appreciated. And I guess I'll just see you in whatever next I'll make. So see you in 6 months?